Hello and welcome to Historic Columbia's virtual Jubilee celebration of Black history and culture. This year we are here at the Man Simon site, which is the birthplace of Jubilee and the Jubilee Festival and Celebration. My name is Timia Thompson. I'm part of the education team, and on today we bring to you an activity all about oral history. Now, to start, if we're looking to figure out how history happens or how we know what happened in the past, we can oftentimes take a look at primary sources. Now, when we're thinking about primary sources, we're talking about firsthand accounts of an event or a specific moment in time. These sources can include things like journals, newspapers, photos, letters, maps, legal documents, museum artifacts, and things like this video that you're watching right now. So we're going to talk a little bit about oral history and how history is made. Oral history is a lot like storytelling. So if you've ever sat in the home of your grandmother, your grandfather, or someone in your family and heard stories about the good old days, these are examples of oral histories. So oral history is the collection of living people's experiences based on interviews, oral history projects, like the one that we're going to mention on today. What we're going to show you now is a clip of an oral history that was done on the Man Simon's family, the ones who were the original owners of this home.
My name is Celia Smith, and I am my great-great-great-great-grandmother is Celia Mann, who owned this property to begin with. I think that she wants her story to be told. I think that being here in Columbia and at the time that she was here when everything was going on within that time, and what she was able to accomplish, that says a lot. And a Black woman at that, that's even more. That says a lot. And throughout our family history, there are a lot of strong Black women, and there are a lot of us who definitely do what we have to do in order to get what we want accomplished. And I think that she would feel accomplished.
So now that you've learned just a little bit about oral history, we're going to take our time to make our own. To help with this, I'm joined by my friend, Kelly Kinard, and we're going to do some demonstration of an oral history project. To get started, we encourage you to talk with a family member, a friend, a neighbor, or someone from your community and ask them if they're okay with you interviewing them for this particular project. We encourage that you focus on a time where they fought for a change, whether that change was big or small, because every bit of change matters. So to begin, you want to prepare for your interview because preparation is key. Once you've found the person you want to interview, you need to take a couple of steps to prepare for the interview. We suggest picking out 3 or 4 questions such as name, age, and even what they do, maybe where they live, if that's appropriate. Then we want you to think of 3 or 4 other questions about their personal and family life when they were growing up, and a few more based on the specific episode or event that they made change in. So for example, I'd say, hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Kelly Kinard.
So Kelly, can you tell me a little bit about what you do for a living?
I work with Historic Columbia and I work in the education department.
So as you can see, I've asked Kelly a little bit about her name and what she does for a living. We call this kind of breaking the ice when we're getting started with our oral interview. To move on to the questions, I would ask her something a little bit more personable, like what kind of games she played as a child. So to start, I might ask her something along the lines on, did you play games as a child?
Yes.
Now notice, she gave me a one-word response. That's okay. Sometimes you have to rephrase the question or even ask a follow-up question to elaborate. So rather than asking, did you play games as a child? Perhaps asking the question, well, what kind of games did you play as a child might be more appropriate.
Well, I love to play all sorts of games like tag, hide and seek. I like to race on my bike, on my scooter. I have a lot of fun outside.
So now that you've broken the ice a bit, now would be a great time to start asking about historical or cultural events. And what you want to do is make sure that you encourage the person that you're interviewing to talk about their own personal experiences in relation to the event that's happening. That's particularly important. So, for example, I might ask the question of, well, what did your parents do for a living?
My mom, when I was a kid, my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom. She took care of me, and my dad was in the military. He was in the Air Force.
Or you can ask a question like, well, what was life for you like in 2020?
Oh man, life in 2020 has been a roller coaster. There's this big global pandemic. Did you guys know that was happening?
So we ask these personal questions of their personal experience because everybody has a different relationship or experience with what's going on in a specific moment of time. And that's what makes oral history so rich. We're telling a story, but in particular, you're telling the story of the person that you're interviewing, not just your story as you see it. So again, when you're planning your questions, you want to make sure that you are avoiding yes and no. You want to make sure you elaborate and ask questions that sometimes might provide a more rich detail for what it is that you're trying to find out. You can also ask the interviewee if they have any letters or photographs, any objects in relation to what you're talking about to see if they'd like to share those and talk about those as well. All right, so now that we talked a little bit about your questions for your interview, let's talk a little bit about recording your interview. It's up to you to decide how you want to do that. So if you have access to a cell phone or any kind of digital device, that's the perfect way to record your interview. Not to worry though, if you don't have access to an electronic device, you can still record your interview in a number of ways. So we're just suggesting that you take notes of the interview, write down the interviewee's answers, and I'm going to give you a couple of tips and tricks for how to best do that. So if you choose to take notes or record your interview, here are some tips to jot down a lot of information quickly. Well, first and foremost, you do not have to use complete sentences. In fact, what you want to make sure that you're doing is remembering and writing down key words that are important to the questions that you asked. It's important that you remember what's being asked, but also that you take time to listen to the responses as well. After all, that's how you're going to be able to tell the best story. So listen to make sure that you understand what the interviewee is saying, and then write down their answers. Don't be afraid to ask for help, or if you're not quite sure you understood what was being said, don't be afraid to ask for some clarification as well. And if you need an adult to help you write down some of those answers, don't be afraid to ask that either. If you're running low on notebook paper, not to worry, you can use the lined paper that we've provided in your packet to take notes. Now, last but most certainly not least, we want to ask that you reflect on these stories, on what you've learned about doing an oral history interview, and also about the changes that you asked to be shared with you. So consider, what was your favorite part of the experience? Did you run into any challenges while trying to record your oral history? And if so, in what ways did you overcome them? You also want to think about how that oral history helped to change your thinking about history in general and the historical event that you learned about. It's time to show off your hard work once you've done all of this. You can create an article, a pamphlet, a poster, a book with this oral history. You can even create your own recording to express what it is that you've learned and share out with your community. You can present this oral history to family members, neighbors, and or community members, and share your work in a public space. Hang your oral history project on a school, church, or community event board. It's up to you how you decide to share. We just want you to share that information. So I want to thank you for joining us on today as we talk a little bit more about oral history. Thank you for joining us for this segment of Virtual Jubilee. Have fun with those projects.